He doesn't shout, doesn't warn, and doesn't even breathe loud enough for you to hear him. In fact, he's so quiet and his movement is so slick you don't even see him. This is Alejandro. Not a soldier or a hero, but something much simpler. A weapon given human form. Sicario is a fantastic movie, unanimously praised for its perfect pacing and down-to-earth depiction of combat. But the movie's plot fades into the background whenever Benicio del Toro appears on the screen. In one of the single greatest supporting roles ever put on screen, Del Toro's mere presence draws viewers in, and combined with Denis Villeneuve's minimalistic and simple filmmaking, it creates one of the subtly scariest hitmen in all of cinema. In real life, however, it's highly unlikely you'll be hunted down by Alejandro. What is likely is that a ton of your information is floating around the web at this very moment. This is why we partnered up with Aura, the sponsor of today's video. There's nothing data brokers can't find out. Your social media profiles, your email addresses, your favorite shooting range, and they can even find that Toyota Camry you bought out of high school and sold a few years back. Every single time you browse the web, you're leaving data behind you, and data brokers are there to pick it up and sell it. The depth to which they can dig is astounding, and the sheer level of detail they can get on you is absurd. And if someone making billions off of your private info wasn't enough to ruin your day, let me tell you, the websites that are actively leaking your info aren't doing anything about it. Aura, however, builds a castle around your online presence. As the workhorse of the internet privacy industry, it finds your leaked info, removes it from the sites it's on, and ensures that it's never again posted somewhere online. There is also no other internet privacy service with all of these features within the same price range. Aura is monitoring your online presence and your banking activity 24/7. You'll get notified immediately if someone is trying to purchase a car in your name or if someone's using your debit to get Aimpoint's newest red dot. A VPN to keep you hidden and a password manager aren't half bad either. While in case something does happen, Aura's fraud experts provide around-the-clock support for all their US-based customers, and they got you covered with Aura's $5 million identity theft insurance. We're not leaving ourselves vulnerable, and you shouldn't either. Click the link in the description below and try Aura for free for 14 days at aura.com/shootingblanks. In those 2 weeks, Aura will get to work scrubbing your personal info from the internet, and your online presence will be ever safer for it. Now back to the video. Alejandro might hold the record for the most on-screen time with the fewest lines. His silence, lack of any sort of social interaction, and a generally calm demeanor depict him as a person who is always in standby mode. He refuses to pay attention to anything not explicitly concerning the investigation into the man who had his wife and daughter killed, and he also refuses to waste energy on anything else. He is a man of focus, and he cares very little for anything other than his final goal, which is vengeance. He, in fact, cares so little that he does not even waste energy on societal norms. When he meets Kate, for example, their exchange is minimal and it mostly consists of him warning her to stay frosty and listen to his instructions. He wants to make sure she doesn't get killed. Aside from that, he does not care at all for engaging with her or anyone else. The minimalistic approach to dialogue was created on purpose as a character quirk, but it wasn't originally supposed to be like that. In Taylor Sheridan's original script, Alejandro had a lot to say. In fact, he himself explained his background to Kate, which is something he refuses to do in the final cut of the film. As they worked on it, however, both Del Toro and Villeneuve realized that this was a bit off. First of all, it was too expository, and secondly, it was unrealistic for a goal-oriented, hyper-focused man plagued by the tragedy of his wife and daughter being murdered to outright tell a stranger, "Hey, the cartel I was fighting as a prosecutor cut my wife's head off and threw my daughter in a vat of acid." You might fall for one of his tricks and think that he has a connection with Kate, but this is untrue. As we learn later in the movie, both Alejandro and CIA spook Matt Graver and are just using Kate, and Alejandro is building a faux positive connection to make sure she doesn't quit on them. Over the course of filming, Del Toro and Villeneuve cut 90% of Alejandro's original dialogue. Villeneuve himself said that dialogue belongs to plays. Movies, on the other hand, are about movement, character, and presence, and Benicio had all that. Moving past the vocal silence, there's a silence of actions we see with Alejandro as well. Originally, there was supposed to be a sex scene with Kate and Alejandro, but Emily Blunt refused to do it and Benicio del Toro fully supported her. Not only did he do it because he's a gentleman, and the pair are personally close friends who would obviously be uncomfortable being naked in front of one another, but it would also make absolutely no sense for this man obsessed with revenge to waste time on sex. Moreover, it would also make no sense for him to jeopardize his relationship with Kate when her presence in the final raid is absolutely crucial to their plans. The only scene in which we get a breakthrough of Alejandro's true character is the short nightmare scene on the plane. You can see his hand move because he's dreaming of being tied down to a chair, trying to break out as he watches his wife and daughter get murdered, and then he grunts as he wakes up. Aside from that, his nature is a completely cold one. The silence of character is also reflected in his firearm choice. The weapon we most enjoy seeing Alejandro use is a suppressed Heckler & Koch Mark 23. This gun was designed as part of the offensive handgun weapon system for SOCOM. It's chambered for the powerful 45 ACP round, and it was created to be a primary weapon, not a backup, which is exactly how Alejandro uses it. Alejandro is the character behind the only gun mistake in the movie, but it's more of a continuity error than an actual mistake. During the border ambush, Alejandro uses an MP5A3 with a suppressor, aim point sights, and railed handguards. In non-firing sequences, however, this gun magically transforms into an MP3 SD3, which is a variant of the MP5 with an integral suppressor. You can spot the difference in this still, as the sight was attached with tape. Nobody really knows the reason they switched the guns, but we won't be deducting points for this as it's such a tiny, barely noticeable detail that it doesn't even break immersion. Speaking of border ambush, this is a fantastic scene. Did you know that the production built a full-scale replica of the Juarez border crossing for this scene? Using the actual border crossing would block the roads for days, and it simply wasn't an option, so they literally built their own border crossing. It was one of the most difficult parts of the production, but boy did it deliver. This scene itself is a microcosm of the entire movie. This movie deeply explores the lines between right and wrong, lawful and unlawful, and in this scene, a CIA agent, an FBI agent, Delta operators, and a foreign vigilante outright murder 2 cars full of cartel members and a Mexican police officer. Of course, they do all that in self-defense, but they do it as a preemptive strike, which is what drives Kate nuts later in the movie, as that's fully illegal and she's a stickler for the rules. In just a few minutes, this scene tells the entire micro-story of the movie. The cartels, the corrupt cops, the task force stopping at nothing and operating beyond jurisdiction without holding back, and in the mix of that, we have Kate, who is essentially us, the viewers. What immediately stands out in this scene is the alertness and the professionalism which is depicted in the lack of hesitation the task force has. As soon as they spot 2 potential threats in cars to their left, they're ready to react, and when they do react, they do it quickly, purposefully, without hesitation. Even though the cartel members are still sitting peacefully in their cars, when the crew spots a gun, they know they have to preemptively react. Aggressive action is better than defensive reaction in this regard, and the movie encapsulates that really well. On some level, we know that Kate understands that too, but she's so obsessed with the rules and building a case around something that all she can see is the fact that they're breaking the law. Also, on a side note, it's a bit ridiculous how Kate has an issue with this. We all saw live leak videos of Mexican cartels literally turning people into spaghetti, and her problem is shooting these same people beyond her jurisdiction. Anyway, the calm professionalism on display is evidence this is just business to the crew. It's administration, something they can do every day, all day. When they get out of their cars, the crew from the 2 cars in the front moves to engage the cartel members in the red car, and the crew from the 2 cars in the back moves to engage the green car. A few seconds later, the same number of members of each crew is approaching each car. That's great attention to detail. Note how only one person leaves the car in the middle. That's because the car in the middle is carrying precious cargo. Guillermo, who's about to learn what really goes on in Guantanamo Bay. The driver gets out of the car to maintain security, but the rest of the crew remains inside because if all hell breaks loose, they have to get Guillermo over the border by any means necessary. This is, once again, fantastic attention to detail because in real life, you really would carry precious cargo in the middle vehicle of the convoy, using the vehicles in the front and back as bullet buffers. It's also great how Alejandro knows what's going to happen and he tells Kate to get out of the car because he knows she'll have a better overview of the situation and generally better situational awareness. She's so shocked by what's happening that she doesn't listen to him and it later bites her in the ass. Everything that goes on in this scene is the pinnacle of surgical precision. Well, everything aside from Kate's mishap, which almost saw her beating God. In contrast with most of Hollywood's shootouts, there's no chaos, there's just business and purpose. We get the same thing later with the night raid. The night raid on the tunnel is another great sequence. The purpose of this raid is not to clear out the tunnel, it's to cause a distraction and insert Alejandro, who will follow Manuel Diaz, one of the lieutenants of the cartel thereafter, to the home of the cartel's boss, Fausto Alarcón. There are a few notable things surrounding this sequence. First of all, this glorious shot. Denis Villeneuve said that this is one of his favorite shots ever because it depicts both their literal and metaphorical descent into darkness, which is the central theme of the movie. We get both NGO and thermal POV, and this is pretty much spot on what night vision and thermal look like. The production even went so far that they added footsteps, which is a crazy detail. They did it by heating up the soles of the boots of one crew member and then having him walk in front of the camera. The thermal shots were filmed with an actual thermal vision camera. They were not added post-production, which is just another testament to the dedication this movie made to realism. It's very reminiscent of another movie that portrayed a similar raid, Zero Dark 30. This raid is, however, a bit more subdued because it follows two separate prongs: the raid itself, which is a distraction, and Alejandro's insertion into Mexico. There is a bit more chaos than with the border ambush, but that's by design, as Matt explains earlier in the movie.
A lot of noise. 4th of July on steroids.
All right, weapons check. Let's go, boys.
And it's safe to say that they follow through with it. It's a great sequence, but the combat takes a back seat to the true focus of the sequence: Alejandro. Alejandro uses the chaos to get to the other side of the tunnel and to get to Silvio, who is a dirty cop. Kate follows him, and as it's the nature of her character, she tries arresting Alejandro, who hits her in the vest on purpose. And he follows it up with a simple,
"Don't ever point a weapon at me again.
Get back up there."
The masks have finally dropped. In the original script, Alejandro and Kate were supposed to have a bit of a longer discussion here, but he simply tells her never to point her gun at him again and leaves with no explanation, which suits his character much better than justifying himself to someone. From this point onward, he has no use for Kate, so there's no need to waste time or energy on niceties. A similar dedication to purpose is apparent later on too, as he shoots and kills the cop, Silvio, when he didn't really need to. He only did it because it was the simplest way to get Silvio out of the way, but he knew that Silvio did not pose a threat to him and he had no real reason to shoot him aside from cleanup purposes. Very quickly, Alejandro is revealed to be a ruthless man who will stop at nothing to get to his final goal. And the thing is, we're still rooting for him. His backstory is too tragic and he's just too damn cool for us to turn against him. Later on, he takes it a step further and assassinates Fausto Alarcon's two sons, wife, and the boss himself, showing that there's no humanity left in him, which is the true exploration this movie set out on. The entire point of this character is that he's not moral, nor is he immoral. He's a purpose-driven person who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. As such a person, he rises above the black and white confines of what we consider is right and wrong, and he just does whatever it is he feels he needs to do. Even though Kate is the protagonist, the movie is really about him, and it breaks down the idea of an inherent darkness we all possess if we're pushed past certain limits. As an assassin, Alejandro is a ghost. He's sort of an antithesis to John Wick, whom we broke down recently in a video you should check out if you haven't done so already. John really goes guns blazing most of the time. Alejandro is a ghost. He just appears out of nowhere and disappears into the darkness when he's finished. In a world of loud heroes, Sicario gave us something actually terrifying: a man who kills quietly. The theme of silence is common in this movie, probably because it goes hand in darkness, and it was reflected with the weapons as well. The firearms in this movie take a back seat to the plot, and they are, frankly, not that important. Nevertheless, we're going to give them a 10 out of 10 because there were no mistakes or issues of any kind except for that MP5A3 and MP5SD3 continuity error. Instead of focusing on the firearms, this movie zooms in on the breakdown of the human character when faced with tragedy, which is a much more interesting story anyway. What did you think of Sicario, and what movie do you want us to break down next? If you want more deep dives into the guns and tactics that shaped modern cinema, subscribe and join the mission.